Hi there, my name is Nathan, and this is another episode of The Human Experience. And today I want to talk about duality and how it enters our everyday lives. Now, duality is a concept that is basically opposing forces. In a spiritual context, duality refers to the concept of two opposing forces or principles existing in a relationship, often as a mechanism of the universe. Some spiritual perspectives suggest that duality is a fundamental aspect of reality, where these opposing forces are necessary for the existence and experience of the universe. That can happen in many ways. In the physical, you could see it as, strong and weak. In our environment, night and day. In the spiritual, light and dark, good and evil. There's so many ways that duality plays out. And even in our senses, this is why I say it's the everyday. In our senses, to see, you need light and dark. To smell, you can have a strong odor, or you can have something that is very faint or odorless. For your hearing, there can be a loud sound, or something can be very quiet or even silent. For taste, you can have the sweet and the savory. There's these contrasting elements all the time. And for touch, you can feel something that is hot and cold, or maybe you can feel something that is painful to touch, and then something that is more pleasurable. The duality plays into this contrast, I feel. And, I was one of these people that I love photography. So sometimes playing with light, I could really appreciate the contrast of things. It almost creates more drama, more detail. But if you want to say to complete a picture and how it does in our lives, it makes it more whole. Yeah, the finished product basically. I want to move on to examples of duality that I have lived through. And this is through reflection that I have seen them in this way. In the moment, I did not see them this way. But the way duality has played out in my life is a very kind of key moment in my life. And that was when I lost my dad. And the reason I say I seen a duality is at the time, I remember my dad passed away. And after, leaving the hospital, I went back home. And at the time, I was a lodger. And my housemate just happened to have a baby the week that my dad died. I think it was literally the day before. So I came home to a newborn baby, and I was kind of in limbo because I was grieving for my dad, but on the same note, I wanted to be happy for my housemate and her partner. And I was happy for them, but you can see how the conflict was arising. I was thinking kind of doom and gloom of like, I've just lost my dad. It's like a massive void in my life. And then like for them, they've just allowed a new life to enter, and it's filling this void and fulfilling them in life and giving them purpose. So yeah, it was a big conflict going on inside. Another way, and I don't want to take credit for this in any way, I'm trying to say this in the least egotistical way, but I am truly blessed to be mixed race. Being mixed race, I have a white mum and a black dad, and I feel it's just that perfect combination to create the whole. Do you know what I mean? The two different elements of races, especially in the world today. In society, we're very divided by class, by race, by nationality. And I seen this in the National Geographic years ago, and it was an article saying that the biggest race that is growing in the world is mixed race. And I thought that was a beautiful thing because, when you look back in time and you see the conflicts that have taken place, whether that be through religion, for, world domination, power, colonialism, it all kind of separated us. It separated ideas and people not getting along and having conflict. And now what I felt is that people were coming together more. This whole, the 60s being more of a kind of free living, free spirited time. I feel that was basically as a consequence of previously you'd had the generation that was, especially in Britain, going through World War One, World War Two. There was a lot of hate, a lot of anger, a lot of sorrow, a lot of sadness. And that it's no surprise to me that the baby boomers are the period straight after the war. That makes perfect sense because it's a time when people are allowed to get back together and enjoy life and accept each other. And it created that, do you know what I mean? Rather than the hate came love, and therefore came unions of couples and people. So that's just to create that balance. You know, being mixed race is hard because sometimes you're not accepted by, say, certain white people see me as just black, and certain black people see me as maybe not black enough, or, you know, mixed, obviously, with the white race and don't agree with that. So yeah, it's been a time where generally I feel I'm accepted for who I am. And in myself, I've always accepted who I am. I've never felt any kind of way being mixed race. I've always felt of it as like a blessing, of like a coming together of the two races, and that's how it should be. And, you know, growing up, you know, there has been times I have experienced racism. Definitely my parents have experienced things through having a mixed race child, I'm sure, kind of people's judgment of them. And I just feel that, you know, how you had a strong element of racism in the 60s and 70s and 80s, maybe in Britain, that now it's gone the opposite way. You know, many kids born in the 2000s and after, they don't care what race you are. They don't care what background. In fact, being kind of mixed, being an almost weird mix, say being like half, I don't know, Nigerian and half Filipino is like not frowned upon like it might have been in years gone by. It's like a very kind of positive thing. I feel it's a very kind of oh wow, you're half Nigerian, half Filipino. Like, how did that happen? Like, curiosity and acceptance is definitely there. So yeah, it's definitely been a good thing. Moving ahead, this diversity, these mixed backgrounds coming together, it was a natural thing I always felt was going to happen. So they were two examples, like I say, of duality in my life. There's been many more ways it has played out, but that on reflection, they're two of the main ones that I've seen. So yeah, there's so many ways that duality plays out. You know, the way I see it within ourselves is our emotions. You know, you can be happy, and then on the flip side, you can be sad. You can be really excited and elated, and you can be down and low in energy. Even your personality type, you know, you can be introverted, you know, quite within yourself, and you can be extroverted, you know, wanting to socialize and more outspoken in a group, etc. So there's so many ways that duality is in the everyday. And once you see the world in this way, it opens you up to see it in a whole new kind of way. Of like, you can see that, like in the Chinese philosophy of yin and yang, that when these forces, that you know, the black and the white side of the symbol are together, it creates the whole. Yeah, everything is complete. So, you know, think of it in terms of, for ourselves, the way it's playing out, literally how it's playing out, existence for us as a human, as any kind of living thing, really, is that you have life and you have death. You know, you have being young and getting old. You have successes, you have failures. Do you know what I mean? It's always this balancing act that's going on. In terms of society, the way I see it playing out, and I talk about this a lot, is obviously we know right now in this current time, we're living very fast-paced lives. You know, the emphasis is on materialism and all this kind of thing. And then if you notice, you can see the counter to these things. So to counter fast-paced living, there's a lot more kind of mindfulness coming out, you know, meditation, yoga, you know, this whole thought of being more minimalistic as well, instead of having material gain. Even with materialism, the way it manifests itself is like this whole capitalistic society, you know. I think of Steve Cutts animation, where there's a guy, he's just kind of consuming everything. He's just more. And in the end, he's on this pile of stuff, and you can see out onto the horizon, and the earth has kind of been depleted of its resources because he's just wanted more and more and more. And when I see these things of like minimalism, you see where people are saying like, I don't need so much stuff. It doesn't complete me. We all need a certain amount of stuff to survive, isn't it? Like food and shelter. But to what level do we need like the luxuries and the other conveniences? Or do we need to be more around kind of less things to make things less cluttered, more open? There's also that altruistic nature that's coming out, I feel, way of like helping someone. So, for example, let me give an extreme example. When you have a crisis like a war or a natural disaster, the opposing effect of that, how it plays out in society, is there'll be a charity appeals and there will be voluntary workers. So think about that. To be charitable is that altruistic kind of way. But to be at war is that more kind of selfish, self-centered, power taking control kind of way. And that's how they kind of counter each other. Going back to more personal kind of things, there's internal battles. You know, there's times in life when I've really been down in the dumps, you know, really felt down. Maybe my career wasn't going how I wanted it to go. You know, there's breakups, there's leaving a job, there's, you know, maybe losing certain friendships and stuff like that. But then there's ups, you know, making new friends, you know, getting a new job, maybe getting a certain qualification. They're all uplifting things that, like, along the way kind of give you that more upbeat attitude to life. So that gives me more of a high. You know, for me as well, I've been a super active person in my life. Like, I love sports. I love being outdoors, going for hikes, going for bike rides, just being active in any way. But what I learned as I get older now is that I need to balance that with rest and relaxation, because if you overdo something, you're going to get injury, you're going to get fatigue and stuff like that. So you need to give your body rest, you need to give your mind rest. And that's just, again, within that yin and yang symbol, remember there's a balance. The white part and the black part, they're balanced to create the whole. If you do too much of one thing, there's going to be that imbalance. Within Buddhism, they have a thing called the middle way. And the middle way is kind of you being more mindful of what you do. Change takes place, and this is how I feel you deal with it, by following the middle way. It gives you that balance. It gives you that, in terms of perspective, things could be better, yes, but things could also be worse. And therefore, you have a higher sense of gratitude, of appreciation of life. It's like, it deals with things like of being and non-being. So imagine you are a being yourself, but you also know there'll be a time when you won't be around. So there'll be like you going back into the environment around you. So a way I could explain this is, imagine when you are conceived and you're in your mother's tummy and you're getting nourishment from her, she is getting it from the environment. Your mum eats, and then that nourishment goes into you through the placenta and you grow. You're born, and then you do it more directly. You interact with foods and different things, and again, it helps you to grow. But then when you get older and then you come to the point where you leave this realm and you pass away and you die, what do? You give back. You give back to the earth. You know what I mean? Your body is there if you're buried, or if you were, say, just left somewhere outside, you would nourish the environment around you. You would feed certain animals, certain insects. The soil, you would nourish the soil for the plants that are growing around you and the trees. So it's a beautiful thing, yeah, that is always going on. We see it as being and non-being, but really it's just a life cycle, life and death, you know. And the way it plays out while you're living is you're young and then you go to being old. And if you don't accept these things, like for me, I have to accept, if I can't accept getting old, then how come I could accept being young? Do you know what I mean? You can't have it both ways. You know, I accept that I've had this time when I was young, you know, more flexible, more energetic, whatever. But now I have to accept this time of slowing down, becoming more fragile, losing my hair, things like that. And ultimately, in Buddhism as a whole, I would say that the reason for the teachings and what Buddha was looking at there is he wants to be free from sorrow and suffering and gain peace and ultimately liberation and enlightenment. And I'm not saying we all need to get to that place, but just if we're on that path, then it's going to create a life that has less friction and more kind of enjoyment in it, more peace in it. And therefore, why would you not want that, throughout your life? Within the body, you have a system that actually reflects what I'm talking about of this duality and balance in it. And that is, in medical terms, you would call it homeostasis. And that is the body's ability to maintain a stable internal environment. So think of it like this. If you're getting too hot, then your body might sweat, and through perspiration and evaporation of the sweat, it has a cooling effect on you. Also, say in terms of something like hydration, we know the body is 90% water, and it's important that the body maintains that balance. So what signal does the gut and brain send to you, or whichever way around that is? It's of thirst. You have the sensation of thirst when you're getting dehydrated. And in terms of, say, eating, when you're eating, you have that sense of being full, when you've had enough, your body's had enough and wants to process what you've consumed. So yeah, these senses are out there finding that balance, and that is going to make life a lot more easier for us in a way. So yeah, that's all I've got time for on the human experience today. I'd love to hear some comments about how you've experienced duality in your life and where it's led you to. Maybe examples of things you've observed or things that you've been in imbalance and then maybe come back and found a way to be more balanced in your life. So yeah, thanks for your time, guys, and I'll see you next time on The Human Experience.